Hey guys, Dark Bro here, and today I wanted to talk about the Yu-Gi-Oh cards that I previously made like a full-on year ago, and talk about, and kind of go over the description and talk about the lore about them, even though they're not going to be official cards, but just wanted to talk about them real quick. To start, we got the first card that I made called Knights of Darkness. This is pretty much the start of the lore where you have the three of them all together. Like I guess it's like the Three Musketeers. So you won't be able to tell from this like picture, but there's actually two dudes and one girl. So it's level 4, which makes it a pretty decent starting thing, and its stats aren't actually that bad. It can almost survive a Dark Magician, and its effect pretty much makes it to where if it's normal summon, it adds a counter, and when it dies, it also adds a counter, which by itself doesn't really help you, but when you see later cards, you'll understand why. Next is the video game Dark Souls, but a card. But it's also level 4, which makes it a really good Xyz material with the first one. It can special summon as long as you control the cards on the field. And when it is summoned finally, you could get the ritual spell or the field spell directly from your deck to your hand. This card is pretty much the one of the knights, kind of going on his own because he got pretty much kicked out from the group or the trio, if you will. So this is the knight kind of going on his own. So he's kind of being on his journey. He's like a lost soul. That's why it's called Dark Souls. And I just also like the name because Dark Souls. I'm dark as well, so it's like funny, like kind of like a mixture, if you will. It's kind of a throwaway card too, because as you can see, the defense is not really that good, and it can't even swing on you, because that's why he's searching. He's searching because he's not like a fighter yet. Here's the first simp card, or I guess female card, if you will. You'll understand by the lore and the fact that it's just a woman character. It's level 4, so it's good for Xyz summoning, and the effect also proves that. Shadow of Darkness, throwaway card, as it has 0 attack, 0 defense. If another dark monster is on the field, you can special summon this card. And just in case you normal summon, you won't be able to use the second effect. But otherwise, if you do, then you get a second effect where you can just substitute it for any material or level. So synchro summoning, fusion summoning, Xyz summoning, all that. And this card's lore is pretty much like a spirit of obviously a female spirit who comes up to the what I call the MC of this lore, which is the soul, the dark soul that was wandering, that was a part of the Three Musketeers. And I guess this is where like pretty much offers like I think marriage or something is what I said it did, and in retrospect for what happens next. After which the person pretty much brings them to the void so that they can gain power and do what I guess the wish of the soul. This is also the first field spell. Pretty much where each time a dark monster is destroyed by battle, only battle, you can add a dark counter onto this card. If you remove the counters, it does those effects. If there's 2, you get to add any card, pretty much dark card, to your hand. If there's 3, dark cards cannot be destroyed by card effects. If there's 4, you gain 100 life points for each, like for the total level of every dark card in your graveyard. This pretty much means the total levels of the monsters, but 100 life points. If this card goes to the graveyard, you can special summon one Xyz monster with no materials from the graveyard. That means if you usually by this point you've Xyz summoned, and then if this card goes away, boom, you get a free Xyz monster with no materials though, unfortunately. So yeah, then afterward, the character pretty much pulls a Call of Duty Mason, Call of Duty Black Ops 1 story mode, pretty much, where he starts seeing numbers, in the Abyss, in the Void. I call it the Abyss because he's seeing the numbers from the Abyss. So he's like, just numbers are appearing. In this case, what happens is both players can special summon from the extra deck using one monster from their graveyard as material into the third standby phase after this card's activation, which means on your opponent's it's the third of your turn. Your second turn and third total turn. So it ends on your turn instead of the opponent's. However, it gives both of you an effect where you can use like your graveyard, like a monster from your graveyard as materials for your synchro summoning, your fusion summoning, everything. So it helps both players, so that's why it's like a positive and negative for both people, because you might not want them to be able to do this, but you also might want let yourself do this. Next, the female spirit thing kind of summons like a dark, deep dark helper from the shadows, and this is the helper that like pretty much helps the dude get like I guess like the change. This starts the change. As you can see, it's an equipped spell. Equip only to a dark monster you control. While this is equipped to a dark monster that cannot be targeted by opponent's card effects. Can still be attacked, but just can't be targeted for card effects. It also gains attack and defense based on the difference of your life points to your opponent's life points. Which means if the difference is like if you one of your opponent's at 8,000, you're at 7,500, then you get a 500 attack and defense. So but this is like the shadow helper. That's why it's a shadow helper because it's like it might not have it like it's just based on the difference. So sometimes running into your opponent to lower make that difference different could help. Next is the ritual. This is what the helper and the spirit female pretty much uses to summon, the soul like into a body, pretty much to give him back a body and give him another chance. Because keep in mind, it's kind of like a revenge story or like a plot against the other two, the other female and the other dude knight that he was forced to like get leave. And this card is a ritual spell. Discard your entire hand, fuse and summon one monster from the extra deck using monsters from your field or graveyard as fusion material, and you cannot respond to this. So this is pretty much that one fusion card Jaden used, Super Poly. And you can't respond to it, you can't stop it, but you lose your entire hand. So if you don't, so you pretty much want to get rid of all your cards in your hand before activating this, unless the effect, you get a bonus effect from losing the card. But this is pretty much where that person gets summoned, though. Next, after coming back and having pretty much a new body, kind of, that darkness and that summoning ritual give him abilities. Also, and this is what we call the dark regeneration, which is a continuous trap card. Once per turn, gain 200 life points times the levels of the monsters in your graveyard or banish zone. Makes use of that zone that nobody pretty much can make use of. Well, for a continuous trap card anyway. If this card is in the graveyard this turn, you can add a counter on a spell or trap on the field. So pretty much this card, is just a healing card. You heal for having monsters dead or banished, so that just in case you fight the Dark Magician with this card or with this deck, then you can gain from that. And if it gets like destroyed or anything, then you get a counter to your field spell. So now we come to our first Xyz card, which pretty much is where the dude has to uphold his promise, where she pretty much gets herself a free husband. Level 4 Xyz monster, 3 level 4s in order to get it. It looks weak at first, but this card has a lot of good effects. Cannot be targeted for an attack as long as there's monsters on your side of the field. This card cannot be destroyed by battle or card effects as long as there's a monster on your side of the field. And this card can attack your opponent just straight up directly. And with each attack that it does this, it gains 1,000 attack. This pretty much means as long as you have a monster on your side of the field, this card is invincible. It is physically invincible. It cannot be targeted. It cannot be destroyed. You can't get rid of it as long as you can constantly keep monsters on your side of the field. So, pretty good Xyz monster, and it can just straight up attack your opponent directly, so you don't need to wait. This is pretty much where you see the soul back in a body, or MC, if you will. The shadow bodyguard is because pretty much after, I guess confirming, he pretty much decides, he's also going to protect her as, like a bodyguard. That's why he's level 4 because, they're married, so they got to be connected somehow. And during either player's turn, if this card is in your graveyard or in the graveyard, you can banish this card from your graveyard and target up to 3 cards in the graveyard, return them back to the deck. So pretty much you can infinitely recycle. You cannot deck out as long as this card keeps going to the graveyard because it can target itself in the it can't target itself, which makes it technically not infinite. But you could, like, if you had another card in another shadow bodyguard, you could always technically loop so that this card will always come back to the deck. But you do have to banish that current bodyguard, so it's not fully infinite, but it does reduce the amount of cards that you lose. This next one is a Pot of type card, specifically for the archetype. Pot of Darkness, spell card, of course. Pretty much adds 4 counters on a card to on the field every time a card goes to the graveyard. This turn, add 1 counter onto a card. So you don't draw, but you just add card. Like the more cards you throw away during this turn, the more counters you add. So you could just add them to your field spell in this case. By the way, in which this is pretty much in lore, this is pretty much the bride in now, or the married, giving him like a drink, just so that like he's got more abilities. To pretty much, this is pretty much to solidify and upgrade him, while also giving herself abilities as well, because she also takes a swig of the pot. That's why it's decaying, because they both pretty much drank it by this point. This is the second simp card, or second female card, if you will. Pretty much this is the creation of that bride person. Shadow Waifu, also level 4. Kind of decent attack, no defense, because it's like being summoned. And when this card is summoned, you can summon 2 of them from your hand or deck. It cannot be tributed as material or attributed or used as materials except for the summon of Dark Rebellion, Xyz Dragon, which is a kind of a throwaway Xyz card, the Shadow Bride who summoned her, and me, the Ninja of Darkness. This card's good and bad. It's pretty much like the Ra's Disciple, as Ra's Disciple has the same effect, except, you can't even link these away. You can't link them away, and your opponent can't link them away. They can only be used for those. So it's pretty much like once you get this card out, you can guaranteed get any of these. Pretty much, you should be able to get any of these Xyz monsters. The next creation by the Shadow Bride is the Shadow Colossus. As you can see by the size, it's huge and has a lot of levels. If Shadow Bride is on the field, hence it's being summoned by Shadow Bride, this card can be special summoned without tributes. This card gains 500 extra defense for each counter on this card. This card is unaffected by card effects, which means that you can't do your own effects on this card, unfortunately. This card also gains 1 counter for each time a card goes to the graveyard. Doesn't matter if it's a dark card, just each time a card goes away. And during each of your standby phases, you must lose 500 defense points or destroy a card. This card. So pretty much you have to be throwing. If you would summon Shadow Bride as fast as possible, get this card out, and you just start chucking cards away. And 3,500 defense points is a lot of defense points to start out with. So I think it's gonna be pretty good. Next, this is the reveal of one of the other knights from the original, the Queen of the Shadows. As you can see, level 6. Has really decent, attack and defense points. Cannot survive a Dark Magician, though, who I think is level 7 or 8. So it makes kind of sense. When this card is summoned, you can conduct another normal summon this turn. And once per turn, you gain life points equal to 100 times the amount of counters on the field. So pretty basic card. But like pretty much once you get her out, she can let you summon again, and you gain life points for the amount of counters on the field. So if you have a lot of counters, then you get a lot of life points times 100. This is the first time pretty much in lore where her and the main character meet. They start having a battle. She starts losing, and pretty much this is where like she like, as you can see, she has magic, but she starts getting cooked and by the newly refound soldier. So of course, what happens next is the king, which is also the other soldier that was a part of the original trio, pretty much shows up to defend his wife, and which is the other one, and is kind of surprised to see his old teammate, but like he fights him anyways. And as you can see, he's even more levels than the other one, being a level 8. His attack is better than Dark Magician. Not better than Blue Eyes, though. If this card is tributed, you can set 1 spell or trap directly from your hand or deck. And if this card is used for a summon from an extra deck, then you can add 4 counters onto the field on any card. So it's pretty good. And by the way, in the lore, he starts cooking the newly found MC, or his fellow friend, if you will. That's like what lorely happens. As you can see, he's even more powerful than the queen was with magic. However, it's not over, as now the queen with her new armor, looking more like a soldier in kind of a Red Riding Hood, starts cooking. She starts cooking. They're jumping him. They're jumping. That's what's happening in the lore. They're jumping. She's as you can see level 8, and she has really good attack and defense. She can easily obliterate a Blue Eyes on her own. And with this, her new abilities is that she cannot be targeted by opponent's card effects, and you have to pay your life points to activate certain effects. So if you pay 1,000 life points, this card cannot be destroyed by battle this turn. If you pay 2,000 life points, this card can make a second attack this turn, and if you pay 3,000, then you can add 2 materials on an Xyz monster that is on the field. Doesn't have to be yours. Doesn't have to be your opponent's. Just you add it onto the field. Um, it's once per turn, obviously. Actually, I don't. It doesn't say once per turn, so I think you can just do it as many times as long as you add the life points. And so here's the next continuous trap card, Return of the Shadows. Once per turn, add 2 counters on this card. You can summon a card from your hand without having to tribute by removing the amount of counters from this card on the field as its level. So that means if you want to summon 8, you have to get rid of 8 counters. If not, so far and so on. Pay 500 life points for each standby phase. If you cannot, this card is destroyed. So pretty simple card. You can just tribute, but you have to have counters on it. It adds once per turn 2 counters, so you have to be a little careful with that. However, this is pretty much, them for not realizing that he's got extra power, so he's returning from the shadows. That's why it's called Return of the Shadows, because this is pretty much him, like, after getting jumped and them thinking he's dead, he's, like, coming back. And, of course, he doesn't know. He's like, what? How am I back? This is when it's revealed that pretty much he's immune to time, as he's now the Shadow Time Warrior, another level 4, so he can, because he's still got to be connected to the bride, as he's still married. Very good attack for level 4. If this card is in your graveyard, you can pay 1,000 life points to special summon this card to the field. This card cannot be banished, so you can't get rid of it permanently. And once per turn, you can add 2 counters on the card on the field. Which is why you have cards that gain life points, because this card pretty much makes it to where as long as you have 1,000 life points, you are not getting rid of this card permanently. And it is if it's not once per turn, nor does it matter if it's the opponent's turn. It's just as long as this card is in the graveyard, boom, it can come back instantly. You kill it, it can come back. So you can do an infinite loop as long as you have pretty much infinite life points. But this is when it's revealed that he's like, he's unkillable by them. So they're like, whoa. This is also when it's revealed that some of the cards and people that he's gotten from other universes as a time person, in essence, he is like that dark power. It affects them and makes, like, Dark Rebellion Xyz Dragon turn and get angry. It pretty much has the same effects as Dark Rebellion. However, it has way more attack and defense, as you can see, but it's slightly different. This card can only be summoned if you use a Dark Rebellion as one of the materials, but once per turn, you can detach it, making all the monsters on your side of the field double their attack for this turn. And during any either player's turn, when this card is destroyed by battle or card effect, you can remove 4 counters from anywhere on the field and summon the Dark Rebellion that, they previously got rid of, or you got rid of, either one. But you pretty much get it back. So you get 2 months. It pretty much, instead, when it dies, it's not actually dying, it's calming down. So it turns back to Dark Rebellion. It's the same thing with Time Thief Redoer, who's just a buddy who can, travel through time. Except now, after losing his friend, he could come on. This is happening before they see him come back. They get angry, and he's got pretty much the same effect. He's slightly stronger, 600 stronger, and he's way more defense. And his card effect, obviously he can only be summoned by using Time Thief Redoer as on the field and 1 Time Thief Redoer in your graveyard as material. But his effect now makes it to where pretty much you can do 3 at one time instead of just 1 at a time. You can do all 3 effects if you really want to. That's really all it does. Is now, instead of having the limit of 1 card, 1 effect, you can do 3 cards and do 3 different effects, all at once. And it's not even once per turn. He's now angry, so the once per turn has been removed. Seeing that they have no way out, pretty much this is them signaling to the castle, the Dark's castle, then which is not a field spell; it's a continuous spell, by the way. Pretty much this is where they started cooking. This is where towards the end of the lore. Each time a monster goes from the field to the graveyard, you can special summon one base soul token, and which has the level 4, so you can exceed and stuff. When a monster declares an attack, toss a coin, and so pretty much this is that one field spell, Dark Sanctuary, and while also giving you a token. That's really all it is. But in lore, this is them signaling back to the castle that it's about to go down. But yeah, in retrospect, this is literally just Dark Sanctuary mixed with a token getting ability. As the card name suggests, this is pretty much Light Kingdom, the Light Kingdom, which is the kingdom that the two other musketeers made. This is their finale. This is their final push. Um, it's a spell card. This card cannot be negated. You cannot stop. So pretty much you can't stop it from happening. It's just like Super Poly 2.0. But you fusion summon Null and Void from the extra deck using Dark Me from the field or graveyard. Both players draw one card. Okay, so what this does is pretty much keep a like a look on that character right there. Okay, keep a look on that character because that's pretty much the character of the end. But yeah, so this is pretty much their last ditch effort. They're just like we gotta give it all we got because we're gonna die anyway. So we're gonna bring everyone with us. Seeing the impending doom, the bride slash wife pretty much lets the MC of the lore know that he's got the power of infinite darkness in him because that's what she did to get him back is she fueled him with infinite darkness. So this is pretty much like the last ditch effort card for him and her. They target me, and you can only lose the battle when that monster is destroyed by battle. That doesn't mean the card can't be like if you get rid of the card, then obviously you don't die, but it's only if it's dead by battle. It has to die by battle. That monster cannot be destroyed by target or targeted by opponent's card effects, and you pay life points until you have 100 left, which means sparks would kill you, but you still can't die until the battle. But after, of course, if you get rid of it, then they can sparks you. Then that monster gains attack equal to the amount of life points you lost, and your opponent can special summon one monster from their hand deck or extra deck without tributes or materials. And if they do, you get to set one. You get to set Last Ditch Destruction, which is the final card of the pretty much this lore. Anywho, using that energy that he was reminded of, you pretty much counters. He counters, hence the chaos counter, because he uses the power to counter the Light Kingdom's final plan. And as the card says, it pretty much if you can just negate a card effect that targets a spell or trap. And yeah, you add one counter. That's all it really does. Very simple. But in lore, he's pretty much countering the final plan of his used to be allies. Okay, and if you were paying attention, like I said before, this is the card of the Light Kingdom's final plan, Black Nanarkin. I also wanted to bring my old friend into this because I thought it would be pretty cool. Pretty much, he's level 6. As you can see, he's pretty decent. He has really good defense, not very good attack, but pretty decent defense anyway. Once per turn, you can add a counter onto the field. During your main phase, you can remove 2 counters from this card and target one monster in either graveyard and special summon it. This pretty much means you get a free monster reborn, every 2 turns. Or if you could just add counters onto this card, you just get a monster reborn, and you can keep using it even if they negate. Well, you can't keep using it, but like even if they negate it, you can just use it next time. Pretty much the good thing about this card is it's like a beefy boy. This is the card from its Light Kingdom's finale before. This is their final plan to destroy everything before, since they're losing. So, and as you can see, you'll see how it transforms eventually. Next is me, Dark, the Ninja of Darkness, with the maximum amount of stars that you can possibly put on a Yu-Gi-Oh card, meaning you have to do it a specific way. Pretty much you just have to get rid of all your cards in order to get this. It's not a specific thing. This card gains 500 attack for every card used for the fusion summon of this card. This card cannot be destroyed by card effects. This card cannot be banished. Can't get rid of me. You have to actually fight me. And you can remove counters from this card, then apply certain effects. If you have one counter on this card, you can attack again. And yes, it's not once per turn, duh. If you have two counters, you can negate the effect of a card on the field, not once per turn. 3. This counter, remove all counters from the field, Then you add Light Kingdom Finale, to your hand. This is the pretty much setting up for the end game. Yeah, remember this card gains a 500 attack for every, card used in your, your fusion thing, like for the fusion of this card. So it's really good. And you could just attack multiple times. So this could be a game ender right here. Next, due to the fact that the main character was able to use me to fight, the Black Nanner can pretty much has to go through a evolution. Going to a level from a Xyz monster to a level 4 again, has standard base attack and the defense. And it becomes a void creature. As you can see, it's even evolved. So Nanokun is evolved now. When this monster goes to the graveyard or banish zone, add counters to all cards on the field equal to your opponent's cards in their hand. Meaning if they have 5 cards in their hand, when this card leaves the field or gets banished, meaning they try to stop it or get rid of it, boom. If they have 5 cards, that is 5 counters to every card on the field. Every card of the field, which means that you can, that means you get way more counters. So if you have my dark card out, boom, he has 5 counters. That means he can attack 5 times or negate 5 times. And it's not once per turn, so it's technically an omni negate. This is the final card of the entire series with a serial number that is in the nines of nines. Null and Void. This is the final evolution of Nanarkan. As you can see, this card can only be summoned using the Light Kingdom Finale thingy or whatever. It's only level 1, just to give you the illusion of hilariousness because it's Null and Void. At the end phase of this turn, this card is summoned. Both players lose the duel. This effect cannot be negated, and this card can only be destroyed by battle. But it has infinite attack, so you can't destroy it. You can't. That's the point. Is unless you pull a Yami Yugi and have an infinite attack monster attack my infinite attack monster, you do not win. So you need infinite attack to attack it. Otherwise, you lose the duel either way by attacking, just swinging once and you win the duel, or by getting another infinite attack monster to swing into it and destroying it that way. However, the effect that can't be negated is that at the end phase of this turn that this card is summoned, both players lose the duel. That's the only card effect that can't be negated. Not the card effect of this card can only be destroyed by battle. That part can be negated, so you technically, if you summon to me, you can possibly win. I don't know. But yeah, so at the end of the turn, though, it would be, both players lose the duel. So it's pretty much like a go-to, like it kills both of you if you don't kill the opponent with Null and Void, which is the end of the story. This is pretty much the end. Once this monster appears, as you can see by the surrounding area, it's desolate as it pretty much kills everybody. Everybody dies. That's the end of the story of the lore. Everyone ended up dying. I hope you enjoyed.